Shout out to the Waterbox customer support team. They're amazing. If you look closely at my stand here, one of my door panels has this box-shaped cut in it. I'm not sure what it's from. At first I thought it was from the protective film that was over the door, like it was just some residue from the stickiness of that film, but after I took it off I noticed I could actually put my fingernail in it. It is a cut. So I'm not sure what it looks like or what it's from. It looks like maybe a razor blade when they were cutting the film or something like that, but I sent the Waterbox team a claim, or I submitted a claim and asked just one simple question, easy to answer. Asked like if the box was damaged, and I said really no, the shipping box looked fine. And they just said, okay, that's fine. And within like a day, they shipped me out a brand new door. Really, in the grand scheme of things, no questions asked. So fantastic support. So I'm gonna be taking most of the equipment from this ProStar to put it onto the new Waterbox. I mean, I'll take the Apex, of course, the Trident, the Dose, the NP40s, even the core return pump. So that's pretty much gonna render this tank useless. But I do have some additional equipment in the cabinet or closet over here that I'll be swapping this out for. So over here, I think I'm gonna do this max spec jump for my return pump on the ProStar 90. I'm going to use these high door pumps back here on the 90. For lights, I actually have a couple of black box lights that obviously are not as strong as my Radions, but that's what's going to go on the 90. And then I'll use those two Radions, plus I have a third Radion. It's the Gen 5 XR15 Blues. So I'll put 3 of those over the Waterbox. I have another Inkbird, so I have 2 of those, so that's good. And I just have a bunch of heaters in here. This will essentially get a bit of a downgrade, but hopefully it won't affect anything in here too much. Once my Waterbox is up and running, I'll hopefully be able to take some of my nicer corals, or at least some of the frags of them, and put that in there. But I'm sure we'll see some negative effects from changing the actual lighting out. I think will be the biggest thing. The flow shouldn't be too different. Those high doors are decent. They'll produce plenty of flow for this tank. Pump is just a pump, so we'll have to see, but of course I'm going to use my best equipment on the bigger tank. So this tank actually has a power strip built into the cabinet, and so I'll just move most of these cords up to that power strip. Won't be as controllable, or controllable at all for that matter, but really need the Apex on the new tank. So I was getting ready to swap out the Core 15 pump with this max spec jump, but unpackaging it and just remembering how big this pump is, it's like 2,500 gallons per hour. It's way oversized for this system. I'd have to run it at like 1 or 2% or something, and so it doesn't make any sense. But I can't leave the Core 15 on here because the Core 15 needs the Apex to run. It doesn't have its own power supply. It needs to run off the Apex. And so Apex going to the Waterbox, which means I have to put a different pump in here. This is way too big. So I think what I'll end up doing is selling this and then just going to my closet here. I have a bunch of pumps in here. And I think this Seche 2.0 will probably be enough for what I need on that tank. So I think that's the route I'm gonna go. So I am gonna try these high doors on this tank. I mean, I don't have a controller for them, so only concern is it's gonna be way too much flow for some of the LPS and softies in there. So I'll put it on there because it's what I have for now, but I may have to get something smaller. So I have the pump, an old heater I got out of the closet that's a little dirty, both wet sides of my MP40 that I'm going to put into this bucket and add some of this citric acid. I like to use this to clean my equipment. It's much safer than the muriatic acid. And also this is like a 2-pound bag that was $10 on Amazon. It's much cheaper as well and works really, really good. With the citric acid, you do have to wait a little bit longer. The muriatic acid, again, is super powerful, more dangerous for sure. It works a lot faster. So again, a little safer. You just have to wait a little bit longer. So I know I said a couple of hours. I might leave it overnight to soak in that bucket there, and then hopefully all the junk will just come right off. So I ended up waiting a full 24 hours, actually longer than 24 hours, having the equipment here in the citric acid bath, and just looking at the pump alone, it's very effective if you wait long enough, but I haven't even done any scrubbing and this pump is looking almost brand new. So we'll go ahead and get the citric acid dumped out, rinse it with some fresh water, and then get it on the tank. Slight change of plans on the pump for the Waterbox. I was planning on using the Core 15. Of course I have the Apex, it syncs with that and everything. Very controllable through the Apex. However, I ran into an issue with this piece here that sits on top. It's essentially sized for 3/4 PVC, and the barb or the braided hosing that comes with the Waterbox for the return is way too big. It goes, over this 3/4 of an inch PVC. And so I would need 1 inch PVC, and it doesn't fit. A 1 inch PVC piece doesn't fit here. So I know I could go to the hardware store, take this off completely, and look for like barbed fitting that could go over this. However, I do have this max spec jump pump that I'm going to use instead. A couple things. This is only 1,500 gallons per hour. This is 2,500. And I have the option to run my UV sterilizer off of the pump. And so if I'm gonna do that, it'd be, of course, nicer to have more horsepower, right, on the pump. And then also, as you can see, this comes with about a 1 inch barbed fitting already, which the braided hose that comes with the Waterbox fits perfectly over this. So it just makes more sense. As much as I wanna use all the Neptune products, this one just makes way more sense for this setup here. And of course, it never hurts to have a really good quality backup pump, which I think everyone should have. So this is gonna be nicer than this one. But again, for my setup, this one just makes more sense. So we'll use this max spec, have this one on standby just in case. All right, we're gonna get the cycle started on the Waterbox. And to do my cycles, I do Fishless cycling, and I use Dr. Tim's both ammonia and his one and only nitrifying bacteria. To cycle the tank Fishless, what you need is just that. You need an ammonia source, and then you need the bacteria to consume that ammonia source. So again, I use this Dr. Tim's ammonia, and you're supposed to use 4 drops per US gallon. Now this tank and sump together is about 197 gallons. However, of course, it's not filled to the very brim, neither is the sump. And then you have water displacement due to all of the rocks. So it's by no means 197 actual gallons of water. And with ammonia, you definitely don't want to go over 2 parts per million. So you don't want to overdose it. 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 So I'm going to base my calculations on probably only 125 gallons, and then I can, dose more if I need to. We'll probably let that sit for a few hours at least, if not overnight, and then we'll test the ammonia and see where we're at. Gonna grab the old API test kit out of the closet here. really only use it when I'm cycling for the ammonia reading and then detecting nitrate. Luckily, the ProStar 90s still somewhat newer, and so that's why I bought this, was to run the cycle on that tank and then test it. And so, I said the old API test kit, it's actually not that old, but still want to make sure it's not expired, which the bottles will say. And this doesn't expire until 2028, so completely fine. We're gonna check and see where our ammonia is from adding the Dr. Tim's ammonia solution yesterday. First test, really not getting any ammonia, pretty much reading 0. I'm gonna run a second test just to be sure, but looks like we'll need to add some more ammonia. All right, so running 2 tests just to be sure, still detecting 0 ammonia, which I intentionally added less because I didn't want to overdose it, but I'm getting 0, so I don't have much of this left. With this bottle, I'm likely just gonna dose the rest of it and hope we get to 2 parts per million. I have more than I thought, so I'm gonna do 10 additional milliliters of the ammonia. It's been about 4 or 5 hours, still getting 0 ammonia, so I suppose I'll just add whatever I have left here. We'll check it in the morning. Third dose, I'm still getting 0 ammonia reading, so plan's backfiring on me a little bit of going slow. So I'm gonna have to order some more Dr. Tim's ammonia, which I actually did last night just to be safe, kind of thinking I probably would still be at 0, and we'll go for a 4th round. So after I went through an entire second bottle of the Dr. Tim's ammonia, I was still getting 0 ammonia with my API test kit here, again, that I just had in the closet. It says right here that it doesn't expire until 2026. And even more specifically, the bottle itself of ammonia says it doesn't expire until 2028. So definitely thought that was fine. So I went and got another bottle of ammonia, but while I was there, I also picked up a new just ammonia test kit, the one just by itself, just because I had the thought of maybe just, even though it says it's not expired, it was just, a bad bottle or whatever. So I didn't put any of this in. Thank goodness I didn't, because I tested it with this new kit. And as you can see, it's unfortunately way over the 2 parts per million that we're shooting for. We're off the charts. So unfortunate, definitely worst case scenario when it comes to putting the ammonia in. Now I have way too much, and I'll have to do a couple of water changes. And just goes to show you that just, I guess, change your test kits often. I mean, I thought I was well in the range, being that it's not expired for a couple of years. But I guess I just had a bad batch. So comparing the two, this is my one I already had on hand. This is the new one. Again, both API. This is just brand new off the shelf. I've had this one in the closet for a couple of months. Same water, tested within 5 minutes of each other. It's just crazy. And I think having higher ammonia for your fishless cycle is actually okay. It's just, of course, going to take longer. And from my understanding, really where you see that take longer is as soon as you get that nitrite spike, that specific bacteria that converts the nitrite just takes a lot longer. If you have high ammonia, the ammonia is just decimating that specific type of bacteria for the nitrite conversion. But technically, you'd be okay, it just takes longer. So we'll see where we're at after this water change and hopefully be in good shape. I've now changed 90 gallons of water and haven't even started my cycle yet, all because of this ammonia mess. So after 90 gallons, we're calling it and starting the cycle. After 90 gallons of water change, we are finally at 2 parts per million. So do not overdose ammonia, what a nightmare. But we can finally add the bacteria. So like I said, I'm going to use the Dr. Tim's one and only nitrifying bacteria. To get the cycle started, I use Dr. Tim's ammonia, and so I use the family of products and use this bacteria as well. This is only for 120 gallons, and so what I like to do is dump all of this in to get started, and then in a day or so, I'll add Fritz Turbo Start, which is a product most people swear by to get the cycle started. And so with the combination of the bacteria, usually I find that speeds up the cycle to get a diverse population of different types of bacteria. So again, we'll do all of the Dr. Tim's right now, and then in a day or so, we'll put in this Fritz Turbo Start, and hopefully that will kickstart that cycle and make it go just a little bit quicker. All right, it's been a couple of days since I added the Dr. Tim's live nitrifying bacteria, and it looks like the cycle is well on its way. The ammonia is starting to come down, as you can see. We're hovering around 0.5, and the nitrite has spiked. And so now, of course, we want to see that nitrite go down, ammonia go down, and then we'll want to start to detect nitrates, and the cycle will be complete. All right, it's been about 4 days since I added the Dr. Tim's live nitrifying bacteria. As you can see, the ammonia has came back down to 0, and our nitrite is still pretty high. So we're gonna go ahead and add the second type of bacteria. All right, so like I said, I already added the Dr. Tim's bacteria. It's been a few days. The ammonia came back down to 0, so we know that's working. The nitrite is up pretty high to hopefully get a different type of bacteria in here to get the nitrite down. We're going to add the Fritz Turbo Start. This is pretty well known in the hobby. People swear by this stuff, so hopefully diversifying the types of bacteria will really help speed this up. And they say this stuff should smell like rotten eggs, which it definitely does. And they say it's a good sign that it's fresh. All right, so we are officially cycled. As you can see, my ammonia has dropped to 0. My nitrite has also dropped to 0, which pretty much tells you your tank is cycled, but just to be sure, you also want to see detectable nitrates, so I went ahead and tested that as well. And as you can see, the pink color, we also have detectable nitrates, so we are officially cycled. So again, our tank is fully cycled at this point. I wanted to run through a quick timeline of how long it took to cycle this Waterbox 190.5. I added my first dose of the Dr. Tim's ammonia on February 12th, and then it wasn't until February 17th that I had realized I had massively overdosed the tank with ammonia, and so started all of those water changes, eventually changed 90 gallons of water, and it was on February 26th that I had realized I had gotten that. So this is the way our house is laid out. If you're curious how my cat just jumped off into space. We actually have a sunken living room. Have this window here, and then this bathroom here has an opening, and so he likes to jump up on this ledge and then shoot up onto that balcony. So that's where he went. So it was February 12th when I added that initial dose of ammonia, and then it wasn't until February 17th when I realized I had massively overdosed the tank and started all of those water changes. So again, February 17th began the water changes that then brought me to February 21st when I finally, after 90 gallons of water, had gotten the ammonia back down to 2 parts per million. And then that is when I also added the Dr. Tim's one and only nitrifying bacteria. Gave that a few days, and then on February 26th, I had added the Fritz Turbo Start. And that brings us to today, February 29th, when the tank is fully cycled. So it kind of depends on when you want to start the timeline. From the initial dose of ammonia till today is about 17 days. But from the time that I actually added the first batch of bacteria, when I was at 2 parts per million of ammonia, to today, it was only like 6 or 7 days. So kind of moral of the story is if you're starting a tank and dosing ammonia and you're not getting any readings on your test kit, absolutely try a new test kit before you put in more ammonia. That was not a fun situation to be in. And then also, I again highly recommend using 2 sources of bacteria just to diversify that population of bacteria. I've seen that happen for me time and time again, really speed up the actual cycle. And I've tried everything from being the second source of bacteria, always use personally Dr. Tim's one and only. And then the second source, I've tried everything from Fritz Turbo Start, that seems to work the best. I've also tried, Fritz has another bacteria just called like 9, the number 9. I've done the API Quick Start, but I usually always add that second source, and it's about a week that it ends up being cycled. Next step is we need to get our first fish in.